Insanity, which is secondary. Primary insanity, he classed it as a person who becomes an adult in the state of insanity. He's insane when he became adult. When he gains his sanity, everything that's missed him, he doesn't make up because he is treated like a child who's not responsible. And then he calls secondary insanity, if a person becomes insane, and at the time of reaching puberty he was sane, then it doesn't matter how much he misses of Ramadan in insanity, he makes it all up if he finds a little part of the month. وَإِذَا حَضَتِ الْمَرْأَةُ أَفْطَرَتْ وَقَضَتْ. If a woman starts on a menstrual cycle while fasting, that fast is nullified. That fast is nullified. She breaks the fast and she makes that fast up. If the menstrual cycle starts after Maghrib, no problem, that fast is sound. وإذا قدم المسافر أو طهرت الحائض في بعد النهار أمسكا عن الطعام والشراب بقية يومهما. If a traveller returns home in the daylight hours of Ramadan, or a woman becomes pure and finishes her menses, what do? They refrain from eating and drinking for the rest of the day. It doesn't count as a fast, but they refrain from that in honouring Ramadan. He says, وَمَنْ تَسَحَّرَ وَهُوَ يَظُنُّ أَنَّ الْفَجْرَ لَمْ يَطْلُعْ أَوْ أَفْطَرَ وَهُوَ يَرَى أَنَّ الشَّمْسَ قَدْ غَرَبَتْ ثُمَّ تَبَيَّنَ أَنَّ الْفَجْرَ كَانَ قَدْ طَلَعَ أَوْ أَنَّ الشَّمْسَ لَمْ تَغْرُبْ قَضَى ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ وَلَا كَفَّارَةَ عَلَيْهِ. If a person, without investigating, is taking sahur, is having his pre-dawn meal, and he thinks the Fajr hasn't started, the fasting hasn't finished, and he continues to eat, then he realizes, oh no, Subh al-Sadiq had come in while I was eating. He refrains from eating for the rest of the day, but he needs to make that day up because he was consuming food at the time where he shouldn't have done. It wasn't out of forgetfulness, it was out of a mistake in his judgment. The same for a person, he thinks the sun has set, and he starts eating, opening his fast, and then he realizes the sun hasn't set, the clouds move and the sun is there. For him, he makes up that day. There's no penalty. There's no penalty because he used his ijtihad, his effort to work out, and he was mistaken in that effort. All he does, he makes up those days without any penalty. وَمَنْ رَأَى هِلَالَ الْفِطْرِ وَحْدَهُ لَمْ يُفْطِرْ. Again, the ruling is here. For avoiding dispute and in when to perform Eid and when not to. Whosoever sees the new moon of Shawwal by himself, you don't make Eid by yourself. He doesn't make Eid, he continues to fast. He made a mistake when they cited the moon for the beginning of Ramadan. Then he says, وَإِذَا كَانَ بِالسَّمَاعِ عِلَّةٌ لَمْ تُقْبَلْ شَهَادَتُهُ فِي هِلَالِ الْفِطْرِ إِلَّا شَهَادَةُ رَجُلَيْنِ. He said, if the sky has any obstruction and prevents us from seeing the new moon of Eid al-Fitr, this time we cannot accept the witness statement of one person. We need at least 2 men, or 1 man and 2 women. He said, why? In the beginning, we were commencing ibadah, which is obligatory. Here, we're finishing ibadah. Caution is taken at the end, and at the beginning is no harm. وَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ لِلسَّمَاءِ عِلَّةٌ لَمْ تُقْبَلْ إِلَّا شَهَادَةُ جَمْعٍ كَثِيرٍ يَقَعُ الْعِلْمُ بِخَبَرِهِمْ. There's no obstruction in the sky which prevents us from seeing the new moon of Eid. Doesn't matter how many people gave evidence, it has to be a large group through which we can attain certain knowledge. In the previous, what did he say? The sky was clear. Only one person saw the moon, the Imam would say, you can't accept your witness statement. There's no obstruction in the sky, everybody should have seen. They didn't. It may be something you thought of, maybe you missed it, or maybe you didn't understand it, maybe you made a mistake. In Eid al-Fitr, the new Hilal of Shawwal, if there's no obstruction in the sky, we wait until the news of a large group who have seen the new moon. It's not sufficient for 2 men, but 1 man and 2 women to give witness statements in that state, because there's no obstruction in the sky. with an obstruction in the sky for the new moon of Eid, minimum 2 men or 1 man and 2 women. For starting of Ramadan, 1 man or 1 woman, free or slave, sufficient. See the difference between the two? This is the concise fiqh of Ramadan. Concise fiqh of Ramadan. It's very simple, it's not difficult. There are some situations which you may need to refer back to an authority for a ruling, but generally it's pretty simple within common sense to grasp all these ahkam concerning fasting. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. That's the end of the book of fasting. The following is i'tikaf. We may have a session of i'tikaf before the 20th day of Ramadan. Can I remind everybody kindly, if you want to ask a question, feel free to do so. Raise your right hand and ask. If you're shy to ask, write it down and send it forward, and inshallah we will try and answer your questions. If people would like a break and need to stretch their legs for a few minutes, feel free to do so. If everybody is still energetic and wants to continue, then that's fine as well. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If you know your community is doing Eid on the wrong day, how do you know it's the wrong day? Do you still have to follow them and celebrate Eid with them? Again, ikhtilaf. We said it's very simple. If the new moon for Eid isn't seen, count Sha'ban, Ramadan as 30 days. Count Ramadan as 30 days. If it's seen, conditions are there. It is obstruction in the sky, we need 2 men, witnesses, or man and 2 women. If there's no obstruction, we need a large group of seeing the new moon. If not, count it as 30 days, and definitely the following day is Eid. So do you still follow them? We base it on fiqh, not following people. It's based on fiqh. Rules in ibadat is not following people, it's following fiqh. What fiqh says you do. If it's going to cause fitna in your community and they're going to imprison you, do it with them. You make up another day. If you intend to complete the Quran al-Kareem in Ramadan, do you have to complete it by Laylatul Qadr, or can you finish it by the last day of Ramadan? Who knows? If she said Ramadan, or he said Ramadan, so Ramadan ends when Eid starts. So no Laylatul Qadr. Clearly, it's the end of Ramadan. And do you have to? It's not binding by intending something. It is binding by vowing to do something. Not the difference. If you intend, for example, to perform Umrah next year, and you didn't, there's no harm. But if you said, by Allah, I will perform Umrah, then it becomes bound upon you. It's binding. So if you intend to complete the Quran, وفقك Allah. May Allah Azza wa Jalla give you success to complete it, but it's not binding. It only becomes binding by vowing, another. Say, I vow to do so and so. Can you make up missed fasts on Mondays and Thursdays with the intention of a nawafil fast at the same time? No problem. You can make up fasts any day you like. So a person wants to attain the barakah of the sunnah by fasting on Monday and Thursday, but he has some qada. He needs to make some fasts. So he can fast on those days as qada, with the barakah of attaining the sunnah. It's not a problem. The same way for a person who needs to make up prayers in his life, but he has a yearning to pray tahajjud. So what does he do at tahajjud's time? He makes up his missed prayers at tahajjud, inshallah he gets the reward of tahajjud as well. Do children have to start fasting at the age of 10 or at puberty? Puberty. Some children don't reach puberty until 15 years of age. Some children reach at 9. Everybody is different. It's puberty. Does the same rule apply for the age children start praying salah? Exactly. When does a person become responsible? With those preconditions we mentioned, shurut al-taklif and puberty. So as soon as a person is responsible to pray, so is he for fasting, so is he for zakat, so is he for hajj. and so on. When women miss fasts during Ramadan due to menstrual cycles, do we need to make it up straight after Eid, or can we make it up whenever we want? Who knows the ruling? Whenever you want. It's not binding, you have to make it up. You can separate them, you can keep them consecutively. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. As long as you make them up. And how much time do you have? Till your last breath. It's entitled to you. It's better to make it up to fulfill the obligation due upon one for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. It's good practice to have mubadara fil ta'at, to have a sense of yearning to complete acts of worship. So it's better to make it up, but if one didn't, is there a penalty? No. For example, waiting for the days to be shorter so it's easier to make the fast. So Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who's decreed the day that is up to you. Make up whenever it is, because the definition is هو الإمساك عن الأكل والشرب والجماع نهارا مع النهار. That's the definition. As long as it's within the daylight hours and you stay away from al-muftirat al-salat, you're fine. So a person, we had a question once, he's diabetic. He requires his insulin or he requires his medication. The days are long, he can't fast. What should he do? Should he just pay the fidya? That's it? No. He waits till winter until he can fast, because he is able to perform the fast according to its definition at some point in the year. That's when he does it. He doesn't just pay money and never thinks about fasting again. No, it's not like this. When he is able to fulfill the meaning of fasting, he does so. For example, so short days, long days, Allah Azza wa Jal is looking at your act of fasting, not the length of fasting. How many times do we read Subhana Dil Mulki during Taraweeh prayer, and how often? So normally it's after every 4 rak'ahs. When do we read the Taraweeh dua, Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-Jannah? Do we read it after every 4 rak'ahs? These are not from the Sunnah. These supplications are not from the Sunnah. And the reason why they're not from the Sunnah is there's grave grammatical errors in both the supplications. Subhana, the word is azama, with the fatha and the dha, not azma. Azma means bone, azama means greatness. So all the printed posters are all mistake grammatically. If you want to read it for the intention of praising Allah Azza wa Jal and doing His tasbih, no harm. Read it correctly. It's not azma, azama. There's a zabr on the wall. And the supplication, Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-jannata wa na'udhu bika min nar, is part of the supplication, Ya Khaliqu Ya Bar. Allah Azza wa Jal's name is Al-Bar, is Bari. Another mistake grammatically. So these are not from the Sunnah. If you do them, there's no harm. If you do them properly. But they're not from the Sunnah. How many times do you read it? As much as you can. Normally it's once after every 4 rak'ahs, and the supplication, Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-jannata, right at the end of Taraweeh. Right at the end of Taraweeh. The people of Makkah al-Mukarram in the past, how did they used to do it? After every 4 rak'ahs, they used to perform what's called al-Usbu', 7 circuits of tawaf on the Kaaba al-Musharrafa. The people of Medina al-Munawwara, when they prayed Taraweeh in the past, while the people of Makkah al-Mukarramah would make the 7 tawaf, they would play another 4. So the people of Medina would play 36 rak'ahs of Taraweeh. This is what they did after every 4. What we do is Subhana bil Mulk. Can we close our fast after 1 p.m. and read Fajr before its actual time? This is harmful. How can you pray Fajr before its time? Shart, condition. As some people read Fajr after 1 a.m. straight away, is this permissible? Now look, we've got so much discrepancies and fluctuations in what time should fast close, what time should Fajr be prayed, and so on and so on. The cautious way to approach this is to understand prayer times. as a general rule of thumb, try and be cautious and close your fast by 1:30. If you go up to 2 o'clock, that's okay, but no more than 2 o'clock. It's a great discovery, this timetable we have here. If you look at the same timetable from 1998, you'll see all the suhoor ending times were 1 hour previous to this. It was 1:52. And I remember what happened so many years ago. Somebody was eager to pray tahajjud. Fasting wasn't in this time. It was in January, February, March. And he came and he talked to one of the imams and he said, how can it be possible somebody prays Fajr at 2 o'clock? Surely it should be later than that. I think there's a 1 hour mistake, so they moved it an hour. That timetable is correct if you put the clocks back 1 hour. If anybody can, I'll give you the momentous task of digging out the timetable from the years 97, 98, 99, you'll find exactly what we're talking about. So if you find June, July, you'll see the times in there. Somebody's changed this. It's incorrect. Incorrect. So 1:30, cautious, no more than 2 o'clock. Because if you understand how we determine the time of As-Subh As-Sadiq, go outside on a clear night and you'll see a white light across the horizon. Mustatir. And when we left Fajr in the morning at 5 to 3, it was halfway across the sky. All we need is just above the horizon, above the ufuq, afaq. Just one small line needs to be seen, and that probably comes around about 1:45. So there's a problem with this timetable. It's been addressed. This one was correct in its previous format. Somebody's changed the Fajr time by an hour. And Fajr, all the A'immah, everybody agrees Fajr can be prayed any time before sunrise. Do we all agree? But everybody agrees after Fajr starts you can't have sahur. After Subh Sadiq you can't eat sahur. You can't take your pre-dawn meal because dawn started. So to be safe from every single school, you finish sahur at the earliest time and you pray Fajr on all agreed upon times. So pray Fajr at 3 o'clock and finish sahur at 1:30. Give you 1.5 hours to recite 2 juz. Because if you do anything otherwise, you'll always have an objection from every single school. What's the job of the faqih? What's the job of the abid? To validate his ibadah for the sake of Allah. So if you must, don't go over 2 o'clock. And if you want to pray Fajr, men, Jama'ah. Women, 3 o'clock. Don't pray before this. Although people will say many things, it opens the door for trouble. 2 or 3 years ago, there was a phase when we were having a time for Isha entry, a time for Fajr entry. Now we're on eternal twilight. We don't have any distinctive marks in the horizon to give us the time for Isha and Fajr. So hence they're using these estimated times by which we had before the time disappeared. 3 years ago somebody said to me, why do you suggest we close our fast on the whiteness of the sky and not the redness? And then you suggest we should pray Fajr after the redness. I said it's very simple. Because Abu Hanifa was of the opinion, whiteness of the sky, through it we determine Isha, and through it we determine Fajr. Every other faqih who are significant in Islamic law, they said the redness of the sky, after its disappearance, it is Isha time, and the same for Fajr. So we said we all agree Abu Hanifa's time for Isha is sound. Why? Because his time comprises the times of those before him, but not vice versa. And the time for suhoor, which he has selected, is guaranteed because you don't have to eat suhoor for the fast of the valid. Everybody knows this. But you cannot pray before time enters. So, we go with Abu Hanifa on suhoor, because you all agree you don't have to eat suhoor to fast. So we all say, we all close fast from the early time, no problem. Then we say, okay, Abu Hanifa says it, we're going to pray Fajr now. 10 years later, we come and we find, through investigation or through the appearance of Imam al-Mahdi, that the red shadow or the red twilight was the original, the red dusk was the original real time. If a person had prayed before the red, he prayed Fajr, then he has to make all those days of Fajr because he prayed time certain. But if he kept his fast, nobody will argue with him because he closed his fast on the earliest time. And he prayed after the red, so his prayer is sun and his fasting is sun. Hence I suggest everybody is responsible for what they do. All I'm trying to do, from my point of view, is to try and validate everybody's acts of ibadah according to all the schools, but there's no dispute left. If you pray at 3 o'clock, nobody will argue about Fajr. If you close your fast at 3 o'clock, people who close it at 2 o'clock will argue. But if you close it at 1:30, nobody will argue with you. So that's the way to safeguard your ibadah. What durood do you read after dua qunut? Any durood will do. Remember in the witr prayer, we pray in jama'ah now, Allahumma inna nasta'inuka, all the way to mulhiq. Some of the fuqaha in the madhab, in the Hanafi madhab, quite common in the Shafi madhab, they like to pray durood sharif after dua qunut. So any durood will do, the one that's mentioned in the books, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin nabiyyin ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. That's the one mentioned in the books of Fiqh. Any durood will do. Do you have to read durood? No. But it's recommended, it's good to read durood after dua qunut. When women miss fast during Ramadan, you read this, right? Is it the other side? Vomit contains blood. Is fast okay? Vomit is vomit, it's all najasa, regardless of what comes out. As long as nothing was swallowed after vomiting, or a person didn't induce the vomit and it was a mouthful, his fasting is valid. If a person breaks fast multiple times, e.g. 3 times, eating, drinking, intercourse, would they have to make 183 days fast or 63 days? If it's done in the same Ramadan of the year, and it's multiple causes for penalty, one penalty will suffice for all of them. However, a person falls into intercourse and he says, I'm going to do kafara. Following day he does intercourse again. The kafara, the penalty of kafara has not prevented him, has not stopped him, refrained him from doing it, so he has to pay too. What we're talking about is a person who's done these acts and says, I need to make kafara, one will suffice. But if the kafara, the intention of making the kafara doesn't prevent him in the future, he has to make up many more. Every single time he does the shamaya, he has to make up. If a person eats, drinks, has intercourse many times, and he doesn't know about kafara came his way, one, okay, I have to do this, it stops him from doing all those things, one will suffice. If it doesn't prevent him, multiple. Someone has an infection, e.g. tooth, and has been prescribed antibiotics for 7 days. Should they fast or take the tablets? Now, is that toothache going to prolong the person's illness? Is it going to make the illness worse? Is it going to prevent them from fasting if he doesn't take the medication? Every person is a judge of that himself. So what a person could do, at iftar, take one, and just before suhoor, take another one. The important thing is to get the antibiotics or whatever the medication is within the system. Not an overdose, just within the system. If a person feels this is not sufficient, his toothache is going to make it worse, it's going to make him miss more days in Ramadan, let him finish the antibiotics and make them. He has a valid excuse. Someone dies and does not leave money. Can the next of kin use their own money to pay fitrana or fidya. Yes, but will it suffice for the obligation the deceased wishes? No. Inshallah, we hope the reward reaches the deceased, but unless the deceased bequests it in their will, it will not count as obligation. The reason for that is, when you want to perform an obligatory act of ibadah, it requires an intention. So his intention will be classed as what he left in his will. If that's not there, and you perform a umrah for somebody, for example, he'll receive the reward of that umrah. He'll receive the reward, inshallah. But will it suffice for his obligation? No. What is the age of puberty for male and females in Sharia? There's no particular age, there's signs. The easy signs they give is a wet dream. A wet dream for man and woman makes them adults. If we don't have any signs, these things don't occur, 15 years of age is considered a sound opinion in the method. So a child, whether male or female, reaches 15, hasn't had a wet dream, for example, hasn't had intercourse, for example, when do we class them as adults? At 15 years of age. Imam Abu Hanifa first did say 18 for men and 15 for women, but the madhab is on 15 years of age. They're considered as adults if they've had no signs. Cannot remember if you fasted when you were younger. What age do you go back? Alpha, from puberty. First wet dream, puberty, person masturbated, had intercourse, he becomes an adult from that time. Do you fast at 15 degrees centigrade? You don't have a C when you're talking about angles. It's only for temperature. Until the time for 18 comes. Look, what we're doing is the other way around. We fast at the last time that was available to us for 18. And we pray Fajr on the time when it is safest on the 12th. I'm not going to talk about 15, 12 and 18. The reason for that is to do with observations. These angles we have, it's in relation to the sun, in relation to the horizon. How far below the horizon is the sun? If you take the world, the globe, to be a circle and divide it into 360 degrees, every place on the horizon, above it light, below it dark. So when the sun is at 18 degrees below the horizon, it leaves a mark in the horizon, some sort of light. When it's 15, it leaves another mark. When it's 12, it leaves another mark. Now these angles, nothing to do with the fuqaha per se. The fuqaha observed what was in the sky with their physical eyes. These angles are reference points to what they observed. Now the most difficult thing for us to do is know what they were talking about and refer it to the angle. That's why to work out prayer times, you need to go and spend time with the Shaykh, with the teacher of Fiqh, who's been trained from Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam through down the chain of how to work out prayer times in a place where it's not affected by artificial light. Go and learn how to work out prayer times, and that's the only way you can do it. That's when you know. These are only reference points for us. So the argument used to be about 18 degrees, 15 degrees. Somebody made a call to the Met Office, the people, the meteorologists, and the head professor there. He spoke to him. And because it was concerning this prayer time, and he asked him about the redness in the sky. He said, when the redness disappears, Isha time comes in according to the opinion of Abu Yusuf, Muhammad, and all the rest of the four schools. The professor actually said, we have witnessed, because he's not a Muslim, we can't take his statement, we can't accept it as a Sharia ruling. He said, through our observations, we noticed that the redness in the sky, again, subjective, what is red? Is it orange? Is it pink? What is it? He said it disappears according to our observations well before the 12 degrees comes in. So the way to rectify this and come to a conclusion about what's correct is to go and learn how to work out prayer times through direct observation. Would we follow degrees and so on and so? is another issue. Is it something to do with the fuqaha? The first person to mention it was Imam Ibn Abidin, radiallahu ta'ala. We didn't mention 18 or 15, he said the difference between the two prayer times is 3 degrees. And he was from 1850s. So they had some astronomical knowledge at the time. But it depends completely on observation. Like I said, for the next few years, at least for the next 7-8 years, 1:30 suhoor, 3 o'clock fajr. 1:30 suhoor, 3 o'clock fajr. After how long should we wait to read fajr after suhoor? Who knows? Time it takes to read 50 ayahs. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was asked about, so you stop eating, when can you pray fajr? It doesn't apply to us because we have an hour and a half. It's when you can see the distinct signs in the horizon. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said the time it takes for one to recite 50 verses. And the surah which is 50 verses in the Quran, Surah Al-Mursalat, just before Amma. Read that. According to Ibn Abbas, you can brush your teeth and it does not break the fast, of course. Siwak means miswak. Don't mean toothpaste and mouthwash. Siwak, no problem. This is natural siwak. Arak, judur al-arak, the roots of the arak tree is the normal siwak or olive tree branch, not artificial flavored miswak. They have flavors in them. Provided a person doesn't swallow, it's okay, inshallah. Also, how much Taraweeh prayer is called? It's not part of Sunnatul Mu'akkadatin, well-established Sunnah to pray 20 rak'ahs. Why is that? Somebody will come and say to you, well, Taraweeh, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, didn't pray, how can you say it's a Sunnah, and so on and so on. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala, we saw groups of Sahaba praying in the Masjid. The best of the reciters at the time was Sayyidina Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu ta'ala. So he, radiallahu ta'ala, brought Sayyidina Ubay and he said, instead of people praying in pockets of congregation, he's your Imam, everybody pray behind him. He saw this 2-3 days and he said, Ni'matul bid'atu hadihi. How good this is an innovation, i.e. exclaimed. Now, one of the things is, how do we establish Sunnah? If the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala did something, then there was sukut. There was silence after they decided something. It formed proof in the Sharia. Ijma' al-Sahaba. It's up to the individual to decide. If he doesn't use his inhaler, is his illness going to intensify? Is it going to prevent him from missing more fasts? Is it a risk on his life? If it is, then he is validly excused to use it in the Sharia. If not, then he shouldn't use it. If he doesn't use his inhaler, his asthma is going to get really bad, or he's going to prolong for a few days, he's going to miss more days, or there's a risk on his life. He is permitted to break his fast to preserve his life. If not, then he shouldn't use it. Can you have suhoor and iftar any time? No. Iftar is after sunset and suhoor is before sunset. Sorry. What does he mean by any time? I understand the question now. So a person, any time within the night, is saying, can I have iftar? Yes. But it's from the sunnah that you have iftar straight after sunset. There should be some ta'ajeel. From the sunnah of the Prophet upon them be peace. As soon as the sun sets, Maghrib is valid to be prayed, you make iftar. And as for sahur, it was his sunnah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He used to leave it to the last part of the night. Meaning you divide the night into 6 parts and the 6th part was specified for sahur. This is, you can have it any time. To follow the sunnah is the best thing to do. Is to have, and one of the things the Shi'i people do nowadays is they wait until Isha time to make sahur. This is something not He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he praised. He says there will be a people in my ummah who distort this deen, they will delay their iftar until the stars appear. These people are doing this. So iftar is to be made as soon as Maghrib, comes in suhoor before Fajr comes in, first of the Salah. So anytime that you would follow the Sunnah, there's a lot of barakah in Sunnah. تَسَحَّرُوا فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ بَرَكَةً. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, take the suhoor, the pre-dawn meal, because within it is great amount of barakah, great blessings. And don't consider yourself less of a man, less of a human being if you take suhoor. No. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Ista'inu ala sawmi bis-suhoor." He said, help yourselves fast in the proper way by taking suhoor. It's from his recommendation, you have suhoor. Allah Azza wa Jal is not seeking from you hunger and thirst. What he wants to do is purify you for taqwa. So if he's made it valid, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ. Allah Azza wa Jal said, eat and drink until that time, so do it. Take barakah. It's not from weakness, it's not being less of a man if you take suhoor. Rather, it is from intelligence. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, "Ista'inu ala qiyam al-layl bi azab." He said, if you want to pray tahajjud, help yourself by taking the mid-afternoon nap. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam knows the human body, how it reacts, how it feels. He's teaching you how to facilitate ibadah for Allah Azza wa Jalla. Not I'm less of a man if I take suhoor. No. This is not from intelligence. It's there, Allah Azza wa Jalla made it permissible. Do it. Help yourself. The worst thing you want is hunger and thirst preoccupying your mind when you're in prayer and so on. Allah Azza wa Jalla is not, the intention isn't, the purpose isn't for you to feel hungry or thirsty. No, that's not the purpose. The purpose is to fulfill the command of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Who is it that creates hunger and thirst within you? Allah Azza wa Jalla. If it doesn't create it, khalas. It's nothing to do with you. There's no condition. It's no condition. Condition is mentioned in the books of Fiqh. Anything else?
I have one question. During the summer months, is there a minimum amount of time that you need to wait after Maghrib to pray Isha? And the same for Fajr after Isha?
Very good. Fatwa intibamiyya. How do we keep the social system intact? The fatwa is you follow the 1 hour 15 minute rule. So the shortest time we have between Maghrib and Isha in the winter months is 1 hour and 15 minutes. Or some say 1 hour, no problem. So rather than praying Maghrib and praying Isha straight away afterwards, wait an hour 15 minutes to keep the social system intact. Otherwise people will come and pray Jama'ah in the Masjid for that reason. And as for Fajr, the Mufti we spoke to from Batley, he said the earliest time that he considers it valid is after 1:30. He considers it valid. It's okay. He gives a certain distinction within the horizon. Allah Ta'ala a'lam bis-sawab. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Anything else? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين بسر الفاتحه. السلام عليكم.
Sure.